The blood-red sunset painted the Colorado plains as Willow Whitman clutched the telegram in trembling hands. "Regret to inform you." 4 words that shattered her world like glass against stone. James Whitman, her husband of 5 years, was dead, thrown from his horse during a cattle drive and breaking his neck instantly. As the harsh October wind of 1876 whipped across her porch, Willow fought back tears, knowing that grief was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not when she had 20 acres of prime farmland outside Denver to manage alone. Willow stared across the land she and James had built from nothing. The modest 2-story farmhouse, the barn with its fresh coat of red paint, the fields now harvested for winter, all of it was hers now, and hers alone to protect. She was still standing there when dust clouds appeared on the horizon. 3 riders approached, their silhouettes growing larger against the dimming sky. Willow recognized them immediately. Victor Holloway, Samuel Tate, and Elijah Burke, her husband's business partners from his days as a freighter before they'd settled on this land. They'd been to the farm a handful of times, always leaving Willow uneasy with their calculating eyes and forced politeness. "Mrs. Whitman," Victor called out, removing his hat as they dismounted. "We came as soon as we heard the terrible news about James." Willow nodded stiffly, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. At 26, she was young to be a widow, but the 3 years on this frontier land had hardened her in ways city life never could. "Mighty kind of you," she replied, her voice steady despite the hollow feeling in her chest. "May we come in?" Samuel asked, already moving toward the porch steps. "Got some business matters to discuss." Inside, seated around the oak table James had crafted with his own hands, Victor wasted little time getting to his point. "James owed us money, Mrs. Whitman. Quite a substantial sum from our last venture together." Willow's spine stiffened. "My husband kept meticulous records, Mr. Holloway. He never mentioned any outstanding debts to you." "Well, he wouldn't want to worry you," Elijah interjected smoothly. "But we have papers. I'd like to see them," Willow interrupted. The 3 men exchanged glances. "The paperwork is being processed," Victor said, "but we've come with a generous offer. We'll take this land off your hands enough to cover the debt and leave you with something to start fresh in town." Willow's heart pounded against her ribs. "This land isn't for sale. Now, Mrs. Whitman," Samuel leaned forward, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "a woman alone can't manage a place like this. You'll be doing yourself a favor." "I appreciate your concern," Willow said, rising to her feet, "but I have no intention of selling. Not now, not ever. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've had a long day of grieving my husband." The men stood reluctantly, but Victor paused at the door. "We'll give you time to reconsider. Grief makes decisions difficult. We'll return in a week." After they left, Willow collapsed into a chair, her composure finally breaking. She knew what they were after. This land was positioned perfectly rich soil, reliable water, and positioned where the railroad was rumored to be expanding. James had been offered substantial sums before, but they'd refused. This was their home, their dream, and she wasn't about to let it go. The following morning, Willow hitched the wagon and drove into Denver, determined to speak with Mr. Peterson at the bank about James's accounts and any potential claims against their property. The bustling streets were a stark contrast to the quiet of her farm, with miners, cowboys, merchants, and ladies in fine dresses navigating the wooden sidewalks. Mr. Peterson's expression was grave as he reviewed James's accounts. "Mrs. Whitman, I'm afraid I don't see any record of loans or debts owed to those gentlemen. However, there is something concerning there have been inquiries about your land title." "What sort of inquiries?" "Questions about the validity of your claim." Nothing formal yet, but the door to the bank swung open and a tall figure entered, immediately commanding attention. His movements were fluid yet purposeful, marking him as a man who lived in the saddle. Dusty boots, worn denim, a simple blue shirt, and a weather-beaten hat that had seen too many seasons to count he was unmistakably a working cowboy. not one of the dandies who sometimes pass through town playing at frontier life. "Mr. Peterson," the man nodded to the banker, then tipped his hat slightly to Willow. "Madam." His eyes were the startling blue of a high mountain lake set in a sun-weathered face. Willow guessed him to be in his early 30s. "Ah, Mrs. Whitman, let me introduce Noah Lawson. He manages the Triple Creek Ranch for Mr. Montgomery," Peterson explained. "Mr. Lawson, this is Mrs. Willow Whitman." Recognition flashed in Noah's eyes. "James Whitman's widow. Madam, I'm mighty sorry for your loss. Your husband was a good man." "You knew James?" Willow asked, surprised. "Yes, madam. We worked a cattle drive together last spring. He spoke highly of you and your farm." Noah paused. "I heard about his accident, a real tragedy." Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. "Mr. Lawson, I'll be with you shortly. Mrs. Whitman and I are discussing some private matters." Noah nodded. "Of course, take your time." As he moved to wait by the window, Willow turned back to Peterson. "What should I do about these men?" "For now, nothing. They have no legal claim without documentation, but be careful, Mrs. Whitman. Men like that don't give up easily when there's land at stake." Willow left the bank with a mixture of relief and apprehension. As she untied her horse from the hitching post, a voice called out behind her. "Mrs. Whitman?" She turned to find Noah Lawson approaching, his hat in his hands. "I don't mean to pry," he said, his voice low and steady, "but I couldn't help overhearing something about men making claims on your land. Would these be the same men who used to ride with your husband, Holloway and his bunch?" Willow hesitated, wary of sharing her troubles with a stranger. "Yes," she finally admitted. "They visited yesterday, claiming James owed them money." Noah's expression hardened. "Those men have a reputation, and it ain't a good one. They've tried similar tactics with other properties." "What do you mean?" "Creating debts that don't exist, pressuring vulnerable folks to sell." He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't mean to alarm you, but you should know what you're dealing with." Willow studied him. "Why tell me this? You don't know me." "I respected your husband. And I don't much care for men who prey on widows." He handed her a small piece of paper. "This is where I can be reached at Triple Creek. If those men give you any trouble, send word." Before she could respond, Noah tipped his hat and walked away, leaving Willow to wonder if she'd just found an ally or another man with designs on her land. The following days passed in an uneasy calm as Willow tended to the farm. She needed help, that much was clear. James had employed a young local boy, Tommy Anderson, part-time for the heavier work, but with winter approaching, there was too much for them alone. She was in the barn, struggling with a stubborn wheel on the plow that needed repair, when she heard hoofbeats. For a fleeting moment, she hoped it might be Noah Lawson, though she couldn't explain why the thought of the quiet cowboy brought comfort. Instead, she emerged to find Victor Holloway alone, dismounting from his horse. "Mrs. Whitman," he called, removing his hat with exaggerated courtesy. "I've come to see if you've reconsidered our offer." "It's only been 3 days, Mr. Holloway. I said I wasn't selling." Victor's pleasant expression slipped. "Things are going to get very difficult for you, Mrs. Whitman. A woman alone on this much land becomes a target for all sorts of trouble." His eyes traveled over the property with naked desire. Accidents happen, fires start, cattle go missing. The threat hung in the air between them. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Holloway?" Willow asked, her voice hard despite the fear prickling along her spine. "Just stating facts." "The frontier is dangerous." He mounted his horse again. "I'll return tomorrow with papers. $500 is our final offer. Be reasonable, Mrs. Whitman." After he departed, Willow's hands shook so badly she dropped the bucket she was carrying. $500 was a fraction of what the land was worth, and they knew it. That night she couldn't sleep, startling at every creak and rustle. At dawn, she made a decision. Holloway would return and she needed help. Mounting her mare, she rode hard for Triple Creek Ranch. The ranch was impressive, far larger than her modest farm, with a main house, bunkhouse, several corrals, and a large barn. Men were already at work, and several looked up as she approached. A ranch hand directed her to a corral where Noah Lawson was breaking a young horse. He saw her immediately, handed the reins to another cowboy, and approached the fence. "Mrs. Whitman," he said, concern evident in his voice. "Is everything all right? Mr. Holloway came yesterday," she explained quickly. "Alone. He threatened me, though not in so many words. He's returning today with papers, demanding I sell." Noah's expression darkened. "I'll come with you." Without hesitation, he called to the foreman, explaining the situation. The older man nodded grimly. "Take Marcos and Ben with you. I'll explain to Mr. Montgomery." An hour later, Willow rode back to her farm with Noah and two other cowboys. They arrived to find not just Holloway, but all three men waiting on her porch. "Looks like we have company," Noah said quietly as they approached. "Let me do the talking." Victor's face contorted with anger when he saw the riders. "This is a private business matter, Mrs. Whitman. Didn't expect you to bring hired guns." "These are friends," Willow said, dismounting with Noah's assistance. "And I believe we concluded our business yesterday, Mr. Holloway." "My land is not for sale. We have papers proving James's debt," Samuel interjected, waving a document. "This land belongs to us now." Noah stepped forward, taking the papers. His eyes scanned them quickly, then narrowed. "This is dated last month. James Whitman was working a cattle drive with me at that time, nowhere near Denver. This signature is forged." Elijah's hand twitched toward his gun. "Who the hell are you to interfere in our business?" "Noah Lawson. I manage Triple Creek for Arthur Montgomery." The name carried weight. Montgomery was one of the most influential landowners in the territory. "This doesn't concern you, Lawson," Victor snarled. "The woman needs to be reasonable. This is no place for her kind." "Her kind?" Noah's voice was deceptively calm. "You mean a rightful landowner? A hard-working farmer, or just someone who sees through your schemes?" Victor stepped closer. "This land will be ours, one way or another." "You'll take her land," Noah said, his hand resting casually near his holster, "over my dead body." The tension crackled between them like lightning before a storm. Noah's two companions spread out slightly, hands ready. "You're making a mistake," Victor finally said, backing down. "This isn't over, Mrs. Whitman, not by a long shot." He signaled to his companions, and they mounted their horses. "If I see you on this property again without Mrs. Whitman's invitation," Noah called after them, "I'll consider it trespassing and deal with you accordingly." After they'd disappeared from sight, Willow released a shaky breath. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson." "Noah, please," he said, his eyes still on the horizon where the men had vanished. "And I'm afraid this is just the beginning. Those men won't give up easily." "What should I do?" "For now, you shouldn't stay here alone." He hesitated. "We can post a couple of men here for a few days, if you'd allow it." Willow considered the offer. Having strangers on her property made her uncomfortable, but the alternative was worse. "I would appreciate that," she finally said. "Though I can't pay much, no payment necessary." "Mr. Montgomery doesn't tolerate land thieves. He'll approve." That evening, Marcos and Ben set up camp near the barn while Noah helped Willow check that all buildings were secure. "How long have you worked for Mr. Montgomery?" Willow asked as they walked back toward the house. 7 years now. Started as a regular hand, worked my way up." He paused. "Before that, I drifted, worked cattle drives, did some scouting for the army." "And your family," a shadow crossed his face, "lost them to cholera when I was 16, been on my own since." "I'm sorry," Willow said softly. "I lost my parents too, though I was younger." They stood in the yard, the fading light casting long shadows across the land. For a moment, Willow could almost forget the threats looming over her. "You've done well with this place," Noah observed. "James was proud of what you both built here." "It was our dream," Willow said, looking out over the fields. "We wanted somewhere to put down roots, somewhere our children would grow up." Her voice caught. "We never got to that part." Noah's gaze was gentle. "I should check on the men." "Try to get some rest, Mrs. Whitman. We'll keep watch." "Willow," she corrected him. "If I'm to call you Noah, then you should call me Willow." He nodded, a small smile softening his features. "Good night, Willow." That night, for the first time since receiving the telegram about James, Willow slept peacefully. The next morning, Noah rode into town with the forged document, hoping to speak with the sheriff. Willow busied herself with chores, finding comfort in the routine. Marcos and Ben proved to be pleasant company, helping with repairs around the farm that had been neglected since James's death. "How long have you known Noah?" Willow asked Ben as they mended a section of fence. "About 3 years now," the cowboy replied. "He's a good man to work for, fair. Doesn't ask his men to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He seems honorable," Ben chuckled. "That he is, too honorable sometimes, gets him into trouble." He hammered a nail with more force than necessary. "Those men who were here yesterday, they've been causing problems all over the county. Sheriff doesn't do much about it because Victor's brother-in-law is on the town council." By afternoon, Noah returned, his expression grim. "Sheriff Benson says he can't do anything without more evidence of wrongdoing, claims it's a civil matter. So they can just take my land." Willow asked, dismayed. "Not if I can help it," Noah assured her. "I spoke with Mr. Montgomery. He's concerned about what Holloway and his partners are planning. This isn't the first property they've targeted." Over the next few days, a routine developed. Noah would ride in each morning from Triple Creek, work alongside Willow on the farm, and leave 2 men to guard overnight. Despite the circumstances, Willow found herself looking forward to Noah's arrival each day. His steady presence was reassuring, and she found him easy to talk to about everything from crop rotation to books they'd both read. "Why did you help me?" she asked him on the 4th day as they repaired the chicken coop. "You could have just given me advice and gone on your way." Noah considered the question, driving a nail with precise strokes. "When I was 17, after my family died, I had a small piece of land in Kansas. Nothing special, but it was all I had left of them. Some men from the railroad decided they wanted it for a depot. What happened? I came home one day to find my cabin burned to the ground and railroad men surveying the property. They'd filed false papers claiming I'd abandoned the land." His jaw tightened at the memory. "I fought it, but I was just a kid. No one would listen." "I'm sorry," Willow said softly. "It was a long time ago." Noah handed her another board. "But I promised myself I'd never stand by and watch someone else lose what's rightfully theirs, especially not to men like Holloway." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, understanding, connection, perhaps something more. Willow looked away first, suddenly conscious of the impropriety of her growing feelings. James had been gone barely 2 weeks. That night, Willow sat on her porch long after dark, wrapped in a blanket against the autumn chill. The stars seemed impossibly bright, the vast Colorado sky stretching endlessly above her. She heard footsteps and turned to find Noah approaching. "Everything all right?" he asked. "It's getting cold out here." "Just thinking," she replied. "Sometimes the house feels too empty." Noah sat on the step below her, his rifle resting across his knees. "I understand loneliness," he said quietly. "Do you ever wish for a different life?" Willow asked. "Something more than work and duty, sometimes." He looked up at the stars. "I always figured I'd have my own place someday. A modest spread, nothing fancy, maybe a family." He glanced at her, then quickly away. "What about you? What will you do now?" "Stay and make this farm thrive," she said with determination. "It's what James would have wanted, it's what I want." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching horses. Noah was on his feet instantly, signaling to Marcos and Ben, who emerged from the shadows. "Get inside," he told Willow. "Lock the door," she obeyed, watching anxiously through the window as 5 riders appeared. Even in the moonlight, she recognized Victor, Samuel, and Elijah among them. "That's far enough," Noah called out, his voice carrying across the yard. Victor's laugh was ugly. "You can't guard her forever, Lawson. We've got legitimate business here." "There's nothing legitimate about forged documents and threats." "We tried to be reasonable," Victor said, dismounting despite Noah's warning. The other men followed suit, spreading out in a loose semicircle. "Mrs. Whitman needs to understand her situation." Noah's rifle was aimed steadily. "Turn around and leave Holloway. Last warning." Instead, Victor reached for his gun. The crack of Noah's rifle split the night and Victor stumbled backward, clutching his arm. Gunfire erupted as the other men drew their weapons. Willow ducked away from the window as glass shattered around her. Outside, she could hear shouting and more gunshots. The urge to help was overwhelming, but she had no weapon. Then she remembered James's shotgun, mounted above the fireplace. She grabbed it, checking that it was loaded. When she reached the window again, she saw Noah crouched behind the water trough, exchanging fire with two of Holloway's men. Marcos was down, clutching his leg, while Ben provided covering fire from behind the woodpile. Taking a deep breath, Willow aimed through the broken window and fired. The blast caught one of Holloway's men in the shoulder, spinning him around. Startled by the unexpected attack, the remaining men began to retreat. "This isn't over," Victor shouted as they mounted their horses. "You just made things worse for yourself, Lawson." As the riders disappeared into the night, Willow rushed outside to where Noah was helping Marcos. "How bad is it?" she asked, kneeling beside the injured cowboy. "Bullet went clean through," Noah said. "He'll need a doctor, but he'll live," Marcos grimaced. "Sorry, boss. Didn't see the one that flanked us." "You've got nothing to be sorry for," Noah assured him. He turned to Willow. "That was some shooting." "Where'd you learn that?" "James taught me," she said, helping Noah get Marcos to his feet. "He said a woman alone on the frontier should know how to protect herself." They brought Marcos into the house, where Willow cleaned and bandaged his wound as best she could. Ben stood guard outside, watchful for any return of Holloway and his men. "I need to get him to a doctor," Noah said once Marcos was settled. "And we need to report this to the sheriff. They fired first, we have witnesses." "Will that make a difference?" Willow asked, remembering what Ben had told her about Victor's connections. "Maybe not with Benson, but this kind of violence won't go unnoticed." Noah touched her shoulder briefly. "Pack some things, you can't stay here tonight." "Where will I go?" "Triple Creek, you'll be safer there, and Mr. Montgomery's wife will be glad for the company." Seeing her hesitation, he added, "Just until we sort this out. I promise, Willow, you won't lose your land." Within an hour, they were riding toward Triple Creek Ranch, Marcos supported between Noah and Ben. The night was cold, and Willow pulled her coat tighter, unable to shake the image of bullets splintering her home. The farm had always been her safe haven, and now that security was shattered. "It will be all right," Noah said, as if reading her thoughts. "Holloway crossed a line tonight. Even his connections can't protect him from attempted murder charges." Willow wasn't so sure, but she nodded, finding strength in Noah's certainty. As they rode, she studied his profile in the moonlight, struck by how quickly she'd come to trust this man she barely knew. There was something about Noah Lawson that inspired confidence, a steadiness, a quiet dignity that reminded her of James in some ways, yet was entirely his own. Triple Creek Ranch was ablaze with light when they arrived, clearly alerted to trouble by the late-hour approach of riders. Arthur Montgomery himself emerged from the main house, a silver-haired gentleman in his 50s with the bearing of someone used to command. "Lawson, what happened?" he demanded, then spotted Marcos. "Get him to the bunkhouse. I'll send for Dr. Watson." As men rushed to help Marcos, Montgomery turned to Willow. "Mrs. Whitman, I presume? My wife is waiting inside. You'll stay in our guest room tonight." "Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. I appreciate your hospitality." "Nonsense. Any friend of Lawson's is welcome here. Besides," his expression darkened, "we've been waiting for Holloway to make a move like this. The man's a menace." Inside, Eleanor Montgomery proved to be a warm, maternal woman who quickly settled Willow in a comfortable bedroom and brought her hot tea. "You've had quite an ordeal, dear. Try to rest. Things always look clearer in the morning." Left alone, Willow found sleep elusive despite her exhaustion. She kept replaying the night's events, wondering if she'd done the right thing by firing on Holloway's men. It had been self-defense, but the violence was so far removed from the life she'd imagined for herself. A soft knock on her door roused her from these thoughts. She opened it to find Noah, his face weary but relieved. "Marcos will be fine," he reported. Doctor says he's lucky Bullet missed anything important. Thank goodness, Willow said. And the sheriff? Ben rode to town to report what happened. Montgomery's sent word to the judge in Denver as well. He has influence there. Noah hesitated. I wanted to check that you're all right before turning in. I'm not sure what I am, Willow admitted, scared, angry, confused about how this all happened so quickly. I understand. His voice was gentle. You're stronger than you know, Willow, the way you handled yourself tonight. Not many would have kept their heads like that. Their eyes met, and Willow felt a rush of emotion. She wasn't prepared for gratitude, yes, but something else too. Something that made her heart beat faster and her cheeks warm. Thank you, Noah, for everything. He nodded, seemingly reluctant to leave. Try to get some rest. I'll be close if you need anything. After he left, Willow sat on the edge of the bed, conflicted by her growing feelings. It seemed disloyal to James's memory to feel such a connection to another man so soon. Yet there was no denying the pull she felt toward Noah, a man who'd risked his life to protect her and her land. The following day brought a flurry of activity. The sheriff arrived, looking uncomfortable as he took statements from everyone involved in the previous night's confrontation. It was clear he was reluctant to move against Victor Holloway, but with Mr. Montgomery's stern presence and the obvious evidence, he had little choice. I'll issue warrants for their arrest, Sheriff Benson finally conceded, but they might have left the county already. Then why are the surrounding counties? Montgomery insisted. These men attempted murder on my employee and Mrs. Whitman. They need to be brought to justice. After the sheriff departed, Montgomery invited Willow to join him in his study. Noah came too, standing quietly by the window as Montgomery explained the situation. Holloway and his associates have been systematically acquiring land along the proposed railroad route, Montgomery said. Sometimes legally, often not. Your farm, Mrs. Whitman, sits at a critical junction. Why would the railroad matter so much? Willow asked. Because whoever controls the land where stations are built stands to make a fortune. Holloway likely knows something about the railroad's plans that isn't public knowledge yet. He stroked his beard thoughtfully. I've been watching them for some time, but they've been careful to stay just within the law, until now. What do we do? Noah asked. First, we ensure Mrs. Whitman's safety, then we build a case against Holloway that will stick, even with his connections. Montgomery turned to Willow. You're welcome to stay here as long as necessary, my dear. I appreciate that, but I need to return to my farm. There are animals to tend, repairs to make after the shooting. I understand, but it's not safe, Noah objected. I can't abandon everything James and I built, Willow insisted. Besides, running away only tells Holloway he's won, Montgomery chuckled. She has spirit, Lawson. I see why you're drawn to her. The comment made both Noah and Willow flush. A compromise, perhaps. Mrs. Whitman returns to her farm, but with proper protection this time. In the end, it was agreed that Noah and 3 ranch hands would stay at Willow's farm until Holloway and his men were apprehended. Montgomery also promised legal assistance to ensure her land title was secure. They returned to the farm that afternoon to find it untouched since their hasty departure. While the men established a perimeter and made temporary repairs to the bullet-damaged windows, Willow tried to restore some normalcy by tending her garden and feeding the livestock. Noah found her in the chicken coop collecting eggs. We've set up watches. Someone will be awake at all times. Do you really think they'll come back after what happened last night? Men like Holloway don't give up easily, Noah said grimly. Especially when there's money involved. And his pride was hurt last night, Willow sighed, placing the eggs carefully in her basket. I never wanted any of this. James and I just wanted a quiet life. I know. Noah hesitated, then added, Willow, there's something I should tell you about James. Her heart tightened with apprehension. What about him? The cattle drive where he died. I was there, not when it happened. I was working the flank, but afterward. Noah's eyes held genuine sorrow. He spoke to me just before he passed, asked me to check on you if I ever came through Denver. Tears sprang to Willow's eyes. He did. Noah nodded. He was worried about leaving you alone, said you were stronger than anyone knew, but that the world isn't kind to women on their own. He took a deep breath. When I heard about Holloway bothering you, I remembered my promise to James. The revelation stunned Willow. All this time, she'd thought Noah's help was merely the kindness of a stranger, or perhaps something more personal. Learning it began as a deathbed promise to her husband brought a complex mix of emotions: gratitude that James had thought of her protection even in his final moments, but also a strange disappointment she couldn't quite name. "Thank you for telling me," she managed. "And for honoring your promise to him." Noah seemed about to say more, but one of the ranch hands called out, alerting them to a rider approaching. They hurried out to the yard, relieved to see it was only the postmaster's son delivering a telegram. The message was from the sheriff. Holloway, Tate, and Burke had been spotted in Boulder. Lawmen there had been alerted, but so far the men had eluded capture. "At least we know they're not lurking nearby," Noah said, though he didn't relax his vigilance. That evening, they shared a simple supper in Willow's kitchen. The ranch hands ate quickly and returned to their posts, leaving Noah and Willow alone at the table. The domesticity of the scene wasn't lost on Willow, a man and woman sharing a meal by lamplight, discussing the day's events. It felt both strange and natural, as if they'd fallen into a pattern that somehow belonged to them. "Tell me about your dream," Willow said suddenly. "You mentioned wanting your own place someday." Noah looked surprised by the question. "Nothing grand. Couple 100 acres for cattle, some good horses, land with a creek running through it like my family had in Kansas." A small smile touched his lips. "A home worth coming back to at the end of the day." "That sounds lovely," Willow said softly. "What about you? What was your dream with James?" "This," she gestured around them. "A productive farm, maybe expanded a bit, children running around someday, community." She traced the wood grain of the table with her finger. "James wanted to build a bigger house eventually, said I deserved more than this simple place." "It's a good house," Noah observed, "solid, built with care, like everything James did." Willow felt the familiar ache of loss, but it was different now, less raw, more like a bruise than an open wound. "He would have liked you, I think." "I liked him," Noah replied simply. "He was honest. Hardworking. Loved you very much." The last words hung in the air between them, acknowledging what they both knew, that James's memory was a presence neither could ignore. Yet something was growing between them too, something neither had anticipated. "I should check the perimeter," Noah said, rising from the table. "Try to get some rest, Willow." But rest eluded her that night as she lay in the bed she'd once shared with James, listening to the occasional footsteps of the men guarding her home. She thought about Noah's revelation that his presence in her life had begun as a promise to her dying husband. Was that still his only motivation? The way he sometimes looked at her suggested otherwise, but perhaps she was seeing what she wanted to see. The days that followed settled into a watchful routine. No word came of Holloway and his men, but Noah refused to relax security. He divided his time between overseeing Triple Creek's operations and protecting Willow's farm, often working from dawn until well after dark. Willow found herself watching him, the confident way he gave instructions to the other men, his gentle handling of animals, the quiet competence with which he approached every task. She noticed, too, how he always found time to ask about her day, to ensure she had everything she needed. One afternoon, they rode the property boundaries together, checking fences and discussing improvements. The autumn day was glorious. The aspens turned to gold against the evergreens, the distant mountains sharp and clear against the blue sky. "I've been thinking," Noah said as they paused to water their horses at a small stream. "Your southwest field would be good for corn next season. The soil's right, and that ridge would protect the young plants from spring winds." "You've given it thought," Willow observed, oddly touched that he was thinking of her farm's future. "Force of habit, I suppose, always planning for the next season." He looked slightly embarrassed. "I didn't mean to overstep." "You didn't. I appreciate the advice," she smiled. "James was always better with livestock than crops. I'm still learning." You're doing fine, Noah assured her. Better than fine. Many would have sold and moved to town by now. Is that what you think I should do? No, he said firmly. This land is your home, your dream. No one has the right to take that from you. As they rode back toward the house, Willow found herself imagining what it would be like if Noah were a permanent part of her life, not just a temporary protector. The thought both thrilled and frightened her. That evening, a telegram arrived from the sheriff in Boulder. Holloway, Tate, and Burke had been arrested attempting to board an eastbound train. They would be returned to Denver to face charges of attempted murder, forgery, and fraud. It's over, Noah said, relief evident in his voice. They'll likely face years in prison for this. The ranch hands celebrated the news, but Willow felt strangely unsettled. With the threat removed, Noah would return full-time to Triple Creek. Their time together would end. I suppose you'll be heading back now, she said when they were alone on the porch after supper. Not right away, he replied. I'd like to stay until the trial, make sure everything's settled properly. Willow nodded, uncertain whether to be relieved or concerned by the delay of their inevitable parting. Part of her wanted to express the feelings that had been growing within her, but fear held her back, fear of rejection, of being too forward, of dishonoring James's memory. The following week brought Holloway and his companions back to Denver in chains. The trial was set for the following month, and Mr. Montgomery assured Willow that with the evidence they had, conviction was all but certain. Life began to return to normal. Noah reduced the guard at the farm to just himself, allowing the other hands to return to their regular duties at Triple Creek. He moved his bedroll to the barn, maintaining propriety while staying close enough to respond if needed. One evening, as the first snow of the season dusted the ground, Willow invited Noah to join her for supper as usual. She'd prepared a special meal, venison stew, fresh bread, and an apple pie, wanting to thank him for all he'd done. She'd also made a decision, one that had been forming in her mind for days. Noah arrived with an armful of firewood, stamping snow from his boots before entering. "Smells wonderful in here," he said, setting the wood by the hearth. "I wanted to do something nice," Willow explained, suddenly nervous. "To thank you." "No thanks necessary," he insisted, though he looked pleased. They ate by candlelight, talking comfortably about the farm, the upcoming winter, books they'd both read. As Willow served the pie, she gathered her courage. "Noah, I've been thinking about the future, my future." He set down his fork, giving her his full attention. "This farm is more than I can manage alone," she continued. "Even with hired help, it's too much. I've decided I need a partner." Noah's expression was unreadable. "Have you found someone suitable?" "I believe I have." Willow took a deep breath. "You understand this land, you've protected it as if it were your own, and I've come to care for you deeply." Noah's eyes widened slightly. "Willow, please let me finish. I know this is unconventional. I'm still in mourning and you came here because of a promise to James, but I hope there's something more between us now." Noah was silent for a long moment, his face a study in conflicting emotions. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft. "There is something more. At least for me, but I don't want you to feel obligated or rushed." "I don't," Willow assured him. "I've thought about this carefully. I love James and part of me always will, but he's gone and I'm still here, still living." "What exactly are you proposing?" Noah asked, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "A partnership. You want land of your own someday. I have land but need help running it. We could combine your cattle experience with my farm." She hesitated. "And perhaps in time if our feelings continue to grow." "A proper courtship," Noah supplied, "leading where it may." "Yes," Willow agreed, relieved he understood. "Is that something you might consider?" Noah reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I've been considering it since the moment I saw you in that bank, looking so determined despite your grief." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "But I didn't want to take advantage of your vulnerable situation, and I wasn't sure if you could see me as anything more than James's friend." "I see you, Noah Lawson," Willow said softly, "for exactly who you are." Their eyes held, and in that moment, a new understanding passed between them, the beginning of something that might one day become love, built on respect, shared purpose, and the quiet joy of finding someone who understood your deepest dreams. The trial of Victor Holloway and his associates was held in early December, drawing curious onlookers from throughout the county. Willow testified about their threats and the forged documents, her quiet dignity impressing the judge and jury. Noah's testimony about the shootout, supported by Marcos and Ben, left little doubt about the men's guilt. The verdict came swiftly: guilty on all counts. Holloway, Tate, and Burke were sentenced to 15 years in the territorial prison, with the judge making special note of their cowardly attempts to defraud a widow. As they left the courthouse, Noah took Willow's hand. "How does it feel, knowing they can't threaten you anymore?" "Like a weight has been lifted," she admitted, "though I still find myself looking over my shoulder sometimes. That will fade with time." They walked through Denver's streets, now decorated for Christmas with evergreen boughs and red ribbons. The holiday season was bringing a festive atmosphere to the frontier town, with shop windows glowing warmly against the early dusk. "I need to visit the mercantile before we head back," Willow said. "I'm nearly out of coffee and sugar." Inside the busy store, they separated to gather different items. Willow was examining fabric when she overheard two women talking nearby. "That's her, the Whitman widow," one whispered none too quietly. "They say she's already taken up with that cowboy from Triple Creek, not even 2 months after burying her husband." "Shameful," the other agreed, "though I hear he's quite handsome." Willow's cheeks burned, but she kept her head high, continuing her shopping as if she hadn't heard. When Noah rejoined her, concern crossed his face. "Everything all right, just experiencing the joy of small-town gossip," she said with forced lightness. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Ah, I see. Does it bother you?" Willow asked as they left the store. "What people might say about us?" Noah considered the question seriously. "I care about doing right by you and by James's memory, but I don't much care for other people's opinions on matters that don't concern them." He helped her into the wagon. "What about you? Does it bother you?" "It shouldn't," Willow sighed. "But I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting a little. I don't want people thinking I didn't love James or that I'm improper." "Anyone who knows you would never think that," Noah assured her, "and anyone who doesn't know you doesn't matter." His simple perspective comforted her, and as they drove back to the farm, Willow found herself grateful once again for this man who had come into her life so unexpectedly. The weeks leading up to Christmas were busy ones. Noah divided his time between Triple Creek and Willow's farm, helping with winter preparations while they continued their cautious courtship. They shared meals, long conversations by the fire, and the occasional touch of hands or brush of shoulders, nothing improper, but enough to confirm the growing feelings between them. Mr. Montgomery, seeing the direction things were heading, offered Noah a new arrangement. He could continue managing Triple Creek's operations, but with more flexibility to develop Willow's property as well. It was a generous proposal, acknowledging Noah's years of service while supporting his future plans. On Christmas Eve, a heavy snow fell, transforming the landscape into a pristine white expanse. Noah arrived at the farm just as dusk was falling, carrying a small pine tree he'd cut from the foothills. "I thought you might like to decorate it," he explained as he set it up in the corner of Willow's parlor. "It's a tradition my mother always kept." Touched by his thoughtfulness, Willow brought out the few Christmas ornaments she had, paper stars she and James had made their first year on the farm, a delicate glass angel that had been her mother's, strings of dried berries and popcorn. Together they decorated the tree, the simple act feeling somehow profound. When they finished, Noah produced a small package from his coat pocket. "It isn't much," he said, suddenly looking uncertain, "but I wanted you to have something." Willow opened it to find a beautifully carved wooden comb for her hair, inlaid with small pieces of turquoise. "Noah, it's beautiful," she breathed, running her fingers over the intricate pattern. I've been working on it in the evenings, he admitted. Wanted to give you something that would last. She placed the comb carefully on the table and went to the shelf where she kept her sewing basket. From it, she removed a carefully wrapped bundle. I have something for you too. Noah unwrapped the package to reveal a fine leather wallet, the leather tooled with a design of mountains and trees and his initials burned into one corner. You made this? He asked, clearly impressed. Willow nodded. James taught me some leatherworking. I'm not as skilled as he was, but… It's perfect, Noah said, his voice husky with emotion. Thank you. They stood close together in the warm glow of the fire and lamp, the decorated tree beside them creating a scene of domestic tranquility that seemed to hold promise for the future. Willow, Noah said softly, there's something I need to tell you, something I've been feeling for some time now. Her heart quickened. Yes, I came here because of a promise to James, but I've stayed because of you. His eyes held her steadily. I'm falling in love with you. I think I have been since that day in the bank when you stood so bravely, facing an uncertain future. The words she'd been hoping to hear filled Willow with joy. I'm falling in love with you too, Noah. It happened so gradually I hardly noticed until it was already true. He reached out, gently touching her cheek. I know it's still soon. I know there's grief still to work through, but I want you to know where I stand, that my intentions are honorable and my feelings are true. I never expected to find love again, Willow admitted, especially not so soon. But life has its own timing, doesn't it? Noah smiled. That it does. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. Instead, Willow closed the distance between them, allowing their lips to meet in a tender, questioning kiss that quickly deepened into something more certain. When they finally parted, both were breathless. Noah rested his forehead against hers. Merry Christmas, Willow. Merry Christmas, Noah. That night, as snow continued to fall outside, they sat before the fire talking about their hopes for the future, a future they were beginning to imagine together. Winter passed in a blur of short days and long evenings. Noah spent more time at the farm, helping with repairs and planning for spring planting. Their courtship progressed naturally, deepening with each shared experience and conversation. By late February, it was common knowledge in the area that Noah Lawson and Willow Whitman were a couple, and most people had the good grace to be happy for them. As March brought the first hints of spring, Noah surprised Willow one evening by asking her to ride with him to a particular spot on her property, a gentle rise overlooking the creek that marked the eastern boundary. What do you think of this spot? He asked as they dismounted. Willow looked around, appreciating the view of the plains stretching toward the distant mountains. It's beautiful. I've always liked it here. I was thinking, Noah said, suddenly seeming nervous, that it might be a good place for a house, a bigger house like James wanted to build for you. Willow's breath caught. A house? Noah took her hands in his. Willow Whitman, these past months have been the happiest of my life. I know it might seem fast to some, but when you know something's right, time doesn't much matter. He dropped to one knee, still holding her hands. I love you. I love your strength, your determination, your kindness. I love the way you fight for what matters and never give up. I want to build a life with you right here on this land you love so much. Tears filled Willow's eyes as Noah continued. I'm not asking you to forget James. He'll always be part of who you are, part of this place. But I'm asking if you might find room in your heart to be my wife, to let me be your partner in all things. Yes, Willow whispered, then louder, yes, Noah, I will marry you. He stood, gathering her in his arms for a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. When they finally parted, Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold band. It was my mother's, he explained as he slipped it onto her finger. She always said it should go to the woman I loved enough to build a life with. Willow admired the ring, then looked up at Noah with shining eyes. I never thought I'd find love twice in one lifetime. I feel incredibly blessed. They married in April, when the plains were coming alive with wildflowers. The ceremony was held at Triple Creek Ranch, with the Montgomerys hosting a celebration that brought together friends from throughout the county. Eleanor Montgomery had taken Willow under her wing, helping with preparations and offering motherly advice that Willow, having lost her own mother young, treasured. Arthur Montgomery gave the bride away, and Tommy Anderson, who still helped on the farm, served as Noah's best man. Willow wore a simple cream-colored dress with lace at the collar and cuffs, her hair adorned with the wooden comb Noah had given her for Christmas. Their vows were straightforward but heartfelt, promises to love and honor each other through whatever life might bring. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Noah's kiss was both tender and possessive, making several of the ladies present fan themselves and whisper approvingly. The celebration lasted well into the evening, with music, dancing, and enough food to feed an army. As the sun began to set, Noah found Willow sitting alone for a moment watching the festivities. "Happy, Mrs. Lawson?" he asked, taking the seat beside her. "Very," she assured him, leaning against his shoulder. "Though I keep expecting to wake up and find this has all been a dream." "If it is, then I'm having the same dream," Noah said, kissing her temple. "And I never want to wake up." They left amid cheers and well wishes, riding back to their farm now truly theirs together in the wagon decorated with ribbons and flowers by the ranch hands. The night was clear, stars spreading across the Colorado sky like diamonds scattered on velvet. At the farm, Noah lifted Willow from the wagon and carried her across the threshold of the house that had once been hers and James's, but would now be the beginning of her new life with Noah until their new home was built. "Welcome home, Mrs. Lawson," he said softly, setting her on her feet in the parlor. "Home," Willow repeated, wrapping her arms around his neck. "With you." That night, as they came together as husband and wife for the first time, Willow felt the last shadows of grief lifting, replaced by the warm certainty that life held second chances and new beginnings for those brave enough to embrace them. Spring turned to summer, and work on their new house began. Noah proved skilled at carpentry, directing the efforts of hired workers while continuing to manage both Triple Creek and their expanding farm operations. Willow planted an ambitious garden, anticipating the day when they would move into their new home on the rise, overlooking the creek. In July, as they celebrated Independence Day in Denver with the Montgomerys and other friends, Willow pulled Noah aside with news she'd been saving for a special moment. "I have something to tell you," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Something wonderful." Noah looked at her expectantly. "What is it?" "We're going to have a baby," Willow said, watching joy spread across her husband's face. "In January, the doctor thinks." Noah whooped with delight, lifting Willow and spinning her around before quickly setting her down again. "I'm sorry, should I not do that? Are you feeling well?" Willow laughed at his sudden concern. "I'm fine, strong as a horse," the doctor said. Noah placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "A baby," he said in wonder, "our baby." The news spurred Noah to work even harder on their new home, determined to have it ready before winter set in and their child arrived. The house took shape through the late summer and fall, a handsome two-story structure with plenty of room for their growing family. By November, they were able to move in, though some finishing work remained. Their first night in the new house, Noah built a fire in the stone fireplace he'd constructed with his own hands, and they sat together on a bearskin rug, Willow leaning back against his chest, his hands cradling her now prominent belly. "Can you believe how much has changed in a year?" Willow mused. "Last November I had just lost James. I thought my life was over." Noah's arms tightened around her. "And now I know it was just beginning again." She guided his hand to where the baby was kicking. "Feel that, that's our future." Noah smiled against her hair. "The first of many, I hope." "Many," Willow laughed. "Let's get through this one first." On a snowy January morning with a blizzard howling outside, Willow gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Eleanor Montgomery, who had come to help with the birth, placed the swaddled infant in Noah's trembling arms. "Congratulations," she said, smiling at the new father's awestruck expression. "He's perfect." Noah carried the baby to Willow, who was propped up on pillows, exhausted but radiant. "Look what we did," he said softly, placing their son in her arms. "Hello, little one," Willow whispered, counting tiny fingers and toes. "We've been waiting for you." They named him William James Lawson, William for Willow's father, James for her first husband who had, in his own way, brought them together. As Noah watched his wife nursing their son, he felt a completeness he'd never known before. The circle of family that had been broken with his parents' deaths now rebuilt with Willow and their child. "I love you," he told her, his voice husky with emotion. "Both of you. More than I ever thought possible." Willow looked up at him, her eyes filled with the same overwhelming love. "And we love you, always." Outside, the blizzard continued, but within the sturdy walls of the house Noah had built, all was warmth and light and the quiet miracle of new life beginning. Spring came again, bringing with it new growth and possibilities. The farm flourished under their combined care, Noah's cattle herd growing alongside Willow's expanded crops. William thrived too, a happy baby with his father's blue eyes and his mother's determined spirit. On a perfect May evening, they sat on the porch of their home, William sleeping peacefully in his cradle beside them. The setting sun painted the land in gold and amber, the creek glittering like a ribbon of fire in the distance. "I was thinking," Noah said, his arm around Willow's shoulders, "that we might build another room onto the house next year. Maybe two." Willow raised an eyebrow. "Are you planning something I should know about, Mr. Lawson?" "Just thinking ahead," he said with a smile. "This land could support a large family, and William might like having brothers and sisters." "I think that sounds perfect," Willow agreed, leaning into his embrace. "A house full of children growing up on this beautiful land." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Willow thought of the journey that had brought them here, the grief and fear that had nearly overwhelmed her after James's death, the threats from Holloway and his men, the unexpected appearance of Noah in her life. What had seemed like an ending had become a beginning, proving that life, like the land they tended, had seasons of dormancy and renewal. "What are you thinking about?" Noah asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "About how sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us to the best ones," Willow replied. "If James hadn't died, if Holloway and his friends hadn't come for my land, if you hadn't stood up for me that day." "If," Noah agreed, "so many ifs that brought us here." He kissed her gently. "I'm grateful for every one of them, even the painful ones, because they led me to you." As night settled fully over their land, Noah and Willow Lawson sat together, their sons sleeping beside them, their future stretching before them like the vast Colorado sky full of promise, possibility, and the enduring love they had found in each other.